what is a sea anchor and what is it used for. Nautical tips in a nutshell, follow us. All right, let's take a look. Let's do an unboxing like the pros. I've taken it out of its box, which is this one here. But how can this be an anchor? And then a floating anchor? Well, that's kind of an oxymoron, right? I mean, it's a contradiction in terms, because if it's an anchor, it usually goes to the bottom, but this one floats and looks like a nice bucket. It looks like a bucket. But what the heck is something like this even for? Let's take a look at it together. It's definitely more well known among sailors than among motorboat owners for many reasons, but in any case, it's generally more famous. That said, when I first heard about it as a kid, I honestly thought they were messing with me, but now that I'm a bit older, I think it's actually even more than just useful. And I'll explain why right away. Basically, what happens? What happens is that we anchor in order to stay in that spot. What is it that moves us from this? Now, I'm using this little model because it's light. I can move it with just one hand, so it's easy for me. But it doesn't matter whether it's a canoe, a yacht, or whatever. Basically, the concept is a boat. I'm holding a boat in my hand. So what is it in the water, the floating object, that makes it move? The currents in the water, so the movement of the waves and the shifting of water over itself, and the wind. So the sea anchor, being in this position, is always set in opposition to the force that pushes my boat away. Let's imagine it here in front of us. Let's suppose the wind or the current is coming from the northeast, ensures that the movement of the boat is greatly slowed down. Why? Because as we've seen, it acts like a bucket in fact. Let me show you, again, it's a bucket where for a purely physical reason, and honestly, a pretty simple one, water enters through the larger part, which could be 2, 4, even 80 centimeters in diameter, and on the other side, the apical hole, so the hole at the top, is much smaller, about 7, 8 or 10 centimeters. This means that the water that enters can't get out. If it can't get out, it slows down. If it slows down, it does so through this attachment that's connected to my boat. What does this lead to? It leads to the fact that we have two direct advantages. One, it moves, of course. It moves, but it moves, and now we'll see later with the theories. But it moves less than half, less than a quarter, depending on the type, if there's wind, if there are waves, and what kind of wind and strength there is, and what kind of anchor I have. But let's assume the worst case, it moved by at least half. This means that before I lose the spot where I want to stay, where I want to fish, sunbathe or relaxi, will have twice as much time to stay in this area. Because before I drift away significantly, twice as much time will pass compared to having nothing. So someone might ask, why not just use a traditional anchor on the bottom? Well, what if the seabed is 100 meters deep? I'd need 300 meters of chain to drop it all the way down. It becomes something crazy. Or maybe the seabed is only 20 meters deep, but I don't feel like dropping the anchor, the chain, the electric windlass and all that, so I just throw out the sea anchor, and it's much quicker, especially if we're just stopping for a quick swim, staying for an hour or so, and then heading out. Whether you have a sailboat or a motorboat, it doesn't make any difference. This applies just the same. That's the first factor. Positioning the boat, anchoring it in that spot or within that area. Another advantage is related to seasickness, nausea, or anything else that happens when the boat turns broadside to the waves. And I assure you, the boat will end up broadside to the waves. But why is that? It's not because the boat has something against anyone, of course. Let's imagine the boat is here. We have the stern at the back, the bow up front, and the sides. The wind and the waves come from this side and push like this. Then, when it starts pushing like this, the same wave, before it gets over there, starts pushing from here until it starts pushing evenly. So what happens then? What happens is that the wave keeps doing this every time. This is what makes you feel nauseous, the rolling motion. But if instead of doing this, so moving side to side, I move up and down, it doesn't make you feel nauseous, or much less so. That's why here, even people who normally don't get seasick suffer terribly from it. But here, in this position, it's much less, because it's a more natural position, if you will. So we have the advantage both of staying in this area, and since we're anchored in this position, whether it's the wave trying to turn the boat or the wind trying to push and turn the boat will always be held with the bow facing into the wind or the wave, so the position always remains optimal. By staying in a better position, that is, with the bow facing forward, the boat will also move less, because if it faces the wave sideways, it gives more room for the boat to drift quickly into another area. So, in my opinion, the sea anchor is an excellent solution. The movement, even though I'm showing it to you quickly and for just a few seconds, is exactly what you can see thanks to the test we did directly in the water. So I strongly recommend that you equip yourself with a sea anchor, and all that's left for me to say is fair winds and always keep an eye on the weather.